many doctors joining these small group practices versus being a solo practitioner? That is a great question. I think it's a big question. Historically, when medicine first came out and in the way that it's seen now, like in the 1800s when we practice medicine as it is modernly, it was more of like a home doc, kind of like you see on the old TV shows where they go, the country doc, and go to your house, check your whole family out with their little doctor bag, go home. They get paid in money and chickens, whatever. As medicine has grown, a lot of those doctors who are older had got their own practices. It was easier to purchase. There weren't insurance regulations and things like there are now. Older doctors don't even have to be board certified. They're grandfathered in. They don't have to take exams. So there's a lot of things that are historically like old mom and pop shop doctor's offices. So as time grew, the hospital systems and the insurance companies and all the hierarchies came together and they decided to buy out a lot of those. And then over time, there are less private owned practices. Even now, they're being kind of like swallowed up by hospital systems because it's very hard to sustain it with the certain patient population. Like I mentioned, that you might have to have thousands and thousands of patients to pay your staff, your nurses, your front desk, keep it running. And then you have to have somebody as backup so you can kind of like go on vacation and things like that. It's very hard to run as a solo doctor. So a lot of people go and they join the hospital-owned practices. But now there's a revolution, like I was mentioning, with a lot of people who are trying to take back ownership. It actually was discouraged. They're like, oh, no, don't go into private practice like when I was in residency and the people who trained me. So at least for the past 20 years, like they told us not to do that. It's unsustainable. But now there is a revolution where people are kind of taking back medicine and trying to give back to the patients, give them more time, give them less hierarchy with the denials from insurance and stuff like that. So they're doing the DTC.
So that reminds me of a company like a WellMed that started out just as a physicians group, and now they've went into rehab and psychology, and then they've moved into hospice, and so their goal is to be your provider from birth to death.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just a group, right? So um how do you think this helps patients or hurts minority clients and people getting into the medical profession?
I could write a book about that. Black people are already at a disadvantage entering medicine just because of the debt burden. The average cost of debt that a person leaves medical school with is $200,000. I think from my friends, that's just the average, 50% mean. From my friends who left medical school, I think most of us left with like at least $400,000 to $600,000 in debt in addition to college. So with that kind of debt burden, you're not going to run out and get a loan to open a practice. And that's why a lot of people will join different groups where they will pay back your loans. Like a lot of Kaiser will give a large kind of award where you get a signing bonus and they keep you for a certain amount of years and they pay down your loans. I did something called the National Health Service Corps where you give a couple of years and they pay you per year for you working at an underserved community clinic. So there are different ways in which you can combat that and different scholarships and things like that. But it definitely has hindered, I think, a lot of minorities entering medicine. Another thing that we kind of brushed past in terms of when I was talking about my book chapter in Medicine Women was the racism in medicine. Racism is everywhere, but there have been studies. There was one that recently came out that showed that Black students and residents don't graduate more than white students. There are more barriers, and it's not because they aren't smart. is because if they fail a test, they are more likely to be kicked out, as opposed to a white student getting another chance to take the test. They are reprimanded harder for different things. There are different files put on them, grievances for different things. If people with cultural different things, when people are communicating, they maybe come off as aggressive or an angry Black woman when they're just advocating for themselves. So me personally, I was told recently as an attending, like, I should smile more in meetings. I'm like, am I supposed to just walk around like, geez? Is anybody else here in the room doing that? So there are definitely biases out there, aggressions, microaggressions that can definitely hinder people from graduating. Personally, when I entered medical school, there were 15 of us. That was a large class for us of Black students who were at a medical school that wasn't at a historically Black college, and 3 of us graduated on time out of that 15.
Do you remember
so there's a large problem of, like I say, there are a lot of us getting in, but we have to work on getting them out.
So my question, because you went to Hampton University, and recently, and this has been this has crossed my purview for about a year now. People have been downplaying the importance of HBCUs. How important is it? How important was it for you to be a student and a graduate from Howard University?
So I will start by correcting you.
Hampton. I'm sorry.
I would never.
Captain. I'm sorry. My brain went off.
So it's all in love for the listeners out there who may have gone to Howard, like HBCU love, but I would never go to Howard.
Can't allow that slip up.
Yeah. But personally, and this is a personal opinion, I think that it was very important and very instrumental in me going to an HBCU. I would strongly encourage anyone to go to one, whether or not you're Black or not. We had a lot of white people at our HBCU, and a lot of them were on the tennis team, but
going for free.
But yeah, like it's a moment, it's a movement, it's an education for life. I felt so supported. It's probably the reason I got into medical school. We know that people who take standardized exams who are of color typically don't perform as well as their white counterparts. So I did an early medical school selection program that didn't really require that MCAT at that time. I was able to give my confidence. I was able to, even though I was already confident, but it grew into adulthood. I was able to do leadership programs that have impacted the way that I lead now. I was able to work with some of the smartest professors who were there to encourage me, and work with wonderful students who are also there to encourage me. And then I also, when I matriculated into my medical school, which was predominantly white, I noticed a stark difference. The professors didn't have that desire to push you or even know who you were. It's kind of more of like a numbers game. I just didn't feel like I belonged, I will say, at a majority school, and it was a complete different experience at HBCU. I would recommend that everyone go to one. But not Howard. I have a lot of friends from Howard, so I'm definitely going to share this episode when it comes out.
And they're going to have something to say about